Good morning. This is the Health and Human Development Committee, our regular meeting for Thursday, July the 10th at 9:01 a.m. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Tyus, Vice Chair Odenberg, Alderwoman Sonier,
Present.
Chair Boyd,
Present.
Alderwoman Tyus, Vice Chair Odenberg. We have two present. A quorum was not established.
Okay, thank you. We'll skip over approval of the minutes. And we have no board bills to review or resolutions. Our discussion today is animal control. And we are talking with Justin Hauser with Animal Control and Allison Parker. And they are going to present to us in regards to we're discussing stray dogs, staff patrols, and various other animal control related issues. And so Justin or Allison, who's up?
Good morning, Madam Chair. I'll begin. Allison will be sharing her screen. We have a short PowerPoint presentation that we'll be providing to the committee this morning, and then we'll be available for discussion or questions at that time. So while she's pulling up the slideshow and sharing her screen, I would just like to thank you, Madam Chair, and the committee for allowing us to present on animal control today. And we will move into the slides. So this is just a brief picture of our team here with animal control, and then we'll move into the presentation. So just to provide an overview of the animal control team, to give a kind of a scope of who we are and what we do, we have 9 full-time animal control officers. We have 1 per performance animal control officer, and then there are 2 animal supervisor positions. We're working on having the second one filled soon, and so I'm excited to be able to update these slides once that person is actually with the Department of Health. The animal control officers are assigned their work by ward. Each of them have 1, 2, or 3 wards, depending on the call volume. We try to split the assignments up. There are some wards that are busier than others, and we try to balance the call volume among the animal control officers as much as possible. There's about 50 ongoing investigations each time for the animal control officers, and then average year 800 to 900 calls per year for the animal control officers. As far as their day-to-day activities go, they're out in the community, working in the field, they're in the office doing documentation on investigations and paperwork, and then they also prioritize calls out in the community for sick, injured, other priority calls that we receive. I guess I should talk about the folks in the pictures. The previous one was Harmony with a chicken, and then this is Ryan with a kitten here in this photograph. So some of the other activities that our folks do out in the community is they promote responsible pet ownership. They provide education on the Title 10 ordinances, which are what we have regulatory enforcement authority for out in the community. They also collaborate with community partners. This is to link citizens to resources such as pet food or other supplies like leashes and tie-outs so they can safely contain their animals in their yard, and then also with the shelter. Another activity is to minimize the spread of zoonotic diseases, and this is for us to prioritize swift response to calls for service for a sick possum or a raccoon, animals like that. We'll talk a little bit about the city animal shelter now over on Clark Street. We've had that building since about 2014. And then at the time we moved into this location, it was adequate for the average daily intake. We had about 3 animals per day initially. As time has gone on, we've seen an increased amount of increased average daily intake is the best way to say it. There's just more animals out in the community that need our help. We're up to about 7 or 8 for our average daily intake now. And this is definitely outpacing and outgrowing the current capacity of the shelter. We're working with the city to identify and move into a larger, more adequately sized shelter building. And then we also work with our community partner, the contracted vendor that operates the shelter, they have some overflow space at their Walnut location, which thankfully is located very close geographically to the city shelter. And so they've been a strong partner with helping manage the surge of animals that we've had to house at this shelter. The average population is about 125, but the shelter really is only adequate for about 65 dogs for best practices for animal husbandry. We also rely heavily, and like to thank at every opportunity that we have, a strong, robust network of volunteers and foster families that support the shelter and our activities. At any one time, there's about 400 pets that are in the care of the city, but are in foster home placement, just to provide a little bit better care than having all those animals at the shelter. The animal control officers work in the community to try to match pets with lost postings and just get animals returned to owner as soon as possible. They also provide resources to pet owners so that they can safely take care of their pets and keep them in the home instead of needing to be impounded at the shelter. These are all kind of upstream solutions that the animal control team has tried to implement to keep more pets at home and less pets impounded at the shelter. So this is a slide that's just going to talk a little bit about some of the public education activities that the animal control team does. We do try to balance enforcement with compliance. We don't want to earn the reputation of just being out in the community impounding folks' dogs. We want to provide education. We want to provide resources so that we can have more pets stay at home and less pets be impounded at the shelter. We provide flyers and links to resources for veterinary care, pet food and pet supplies that we talked about a little bit earlier. We also participate in community meetings, speaking at the neighborhood meetings and college courses, and then employer level trainings as well. We work closely with the post office and other city agencies to provide animal care information. We regularly collaborate with our community partner, CareSTL. They're the folks that operate the city shelter, to advocate for community resources and then also provide additional education to residents. This last bullet point here, I kind of jumped ahead, but it talks about the education we provided to at-risk groups, such as the Postal Service workers that are an elevated risk of encountering animals while they're out in the community during their regular work activities. So here's another slide about the responsible pet ownership. This is Kelsey. It looks like she's with a dog in a cute Halloween type outfit here on a porch. So the city ordinance 71060 prohibits pets from being left outside when it's a certain temperature out. So we're talking about below 32 degrees or above 93 degrees. During times of these extreme temperatures, our animal control officers conduct additional patrols, animal welfare checks, basically to make sure that any animals that are left outside that are unattended, that we're following up on, and that we're doing enforcement so that these pets are provided adequate shelter. Dogs are more susceptible to overheating, but just because they have a limited ability to sweat, they primarily rely on panting to help regulate their body temperature. And then this just identifies that the dogs are at a higher risk of a kind of a fatal outcome for being left outside in high temperatures for any length of time. Everybody kind of has their own personal barometer on how long is too long. And that's why we like to have our folks out there just to let them know that any length of time without someone monitoring them and attending to that pet is just not going to be acceptable during these extreme temperature times. When we do come across pets that are left outside during the extreme weather, it's considered an exigent circumstance, and then that allows us a little bit more authority to impound the animals and provide medical attention and adequate housing as the normal process would allow on a different time or a different day. So this is going to talk a little bit about the reporting procedures. So during normal business hours, the numbers here are listed for the Department of Health main office, as well as the Citizens Service Bureau, which is going to be the main hub to report any concern or issue with animal control, calling the CSB hotline, getting that service request initiated with the proper information so that our animal control officers can follow up and do whatever enforcement or education activities are needed is really the best information we can give anybody. So if you have a need and you need to get a hold of animal control, Citizen Service Bureau is that system that's already been established that helps us get the contact information we need as well as prioritize the calls as they come in. As far as after hours, so weekends, after evening, holidays, it's going to be the police non-emergency communications line. Their dispatchers are going to be kind of that step in for the Citizen Service Bureau during after hours and weekends, and they'll be the ones to prioritize those calls. We have an on-call animal control officer that's available during these times for evenings, weekends, and holidays, and they'll respond to the priority calls where we need to have someone out and address an issue as they're reported. So this is going to be just a little bit of information on the impact response for the tornado. This is a picture of Ryan again. This is at the Disaster Assistance Center. We had a table set up there, and we mainly provided pet food for cats and dogs, and then some information for additional resources for pet supplies and things like that. We did partner with the Humane Society of Missouri for temporary housing for pets that have been displaced by the tornado and the damage. We partnered with Carroll House Quick Fix and their clinic to distribute pet food at various locations around the impacted area, and that started around May 25th. We had the table at the Disaster Assistance Center. The totals here, it looks like 12,500 pounds of dry pet food, and then over 1,100 cans of wet food were distributed to about 1,375 citizens during the course of that 3-week operation of the Disaster Assistance Center. We have been conducting additional patrols in the impacted areas to provide resources, and then also just keep an eye out for any pets running at large that have been displaced by the storm, so that we can either have them in protective custody at one of those partners or to have a reunification with the animal owner as well. We have received quite a bit of supplies during the disaster response. The ASPCA, Bixby, which is a pet food vendor, Blue Buffalo, Stray Rescue, and Red Cross have all kind of combined and come together during this time to provide supplies and resources for those in need that were impacted by the tornado. All right, so it looks like we're just going to round out the presentation here with some more cute pet pictures. There is a pig. We've got a tiny little bird in a bite glove, and then Allison's here with a pet on actually 2 dogs on a leash here. So I'll pause for a second. We will entertain any questions or clarification that we need. I know I kind of sped through that rather fast. We'll make sure the slideshow is available for anybody that would like to have this just to reference on their own. And then we can have any additional discussion now that we'd like. Thank you.
Hey, Justin, could you email that presentation to the BOA clerk?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. You gave us a lot of information and I appreciate the information. And that pig looks very familiar, because I think that was the terror pig that was in the ward that we were trying to get taken care of. So thank you all for what you did. So at this time, I'm going to ask, does any members have any questions? So Alderman Oldenburg, do you have any questions for Justin or Allison?
I do. I'm curious. Can you all hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, great. Justin, Allison, thanks for being here. Can you explain a little bit about the contract that exists between CareSTL and the city?
Sure. So the contract that exists between the City Department of Health and CareSTL is to provide the shelter operations services. There's kind of 3 main buckets of services that are provided for this contract. One is just the animal husbandry for the general population of the animals housed at the city shelter. So day-to-day operations, cleaning the kennels, feeding, the enrichment activities, things like that. Another main category is the veterinary care for that general population of pets. So they provide the day-to-day assessments as animals, we intake them into the shelter. They'll do an assessment and determine the care plan for each individual animal. They'll also provide that care. And then the third component, main component, is the after hours intake. So they'll have a representative that'll make sure the shelter is open and available to intake animals after hours during the weekends, as well as provide emergent veterinary care. So if there's an animal that's injured by a vehicle or some other situation where immediate veterinary care is needed, the CareSTL
Got it.
contract also provides for that as well. There's some other nuanced activities they do that I don't want to skip over, and I don't want to admit or omit the contribution. So Allison, is there anything besides those three main chunks that we would like to highlight as far as the relationship between CARE and Department of Health?
I think you mostly covered it. It's mostly just about the animal care and facilitating adoptions and foster placements and all of that stuff.
Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah, my assessment is it seems to be running kind of fine, right? I think it's a good relationship. Do you know, does that contract or agreement come up every few years? Is it just at will, based on the administration and the Department of Health working with CARE as a vendor? I just don't know if it's in jeopardy of sort of expiring or what the status is of the current contract. Because again, if there tends to be some operational efficiencies with it, and I believe that there are, I just want to make sure that the status of that contract is not in jeopardy or that it gets renewed. So you know where that sort of agreement exists?
Yes, Alderman. So the process does come up for renewal each year. There is a contract.
Oh,
It
each
kind
year.
of comes in chunks. And so we'll have a contract approved with the option to extend, and we'll work through those extensions each year. And so that's kind of the
I
main
see.
process. Each extension is kind of based on funding availability, because as the
Got it.
number of animals that the vendor is required to care for goes up, the cost increases. And so it's a challenging balancing act as far as capacity versus resources, but it comes up for renewal each year. As far as I'm aware, the process is moving forward for the renewal for this year so that we can continue with the contract with CARE STL.
Good.
So it's a
Appreciate that.
balancing act.
You're welcome.
Capacity versus.
I have no further questions at the moment, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Saunier, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. I just wanted to know about, well, first of all, thank you all for your work. I've worked with you many times on some interesting situations, especially with Ms. Parker. We've had just some incidents with animals where sometimes they're in situations where they need to be removed from the owners. Sometimes they're in situations where they're constantly on the loose, and you guys have really done a good job as far as responding and getting those situations under control and working with other officers when necessary. I was just curious about some of the challenges facing your department with like space in the animal shelter. I've heard that that's a challenge. And I'm also curious how the tornado has impacted your operations and what additional challenges that has presented.
Okay, well, I think again, I'll lead in here initially, and then we'll let Allison kind of clarify or add anything to my comments on that. So for the first part about space, we could always use more space. The current shelter, its size and capacity just isn't adequate for the needs of the city animals that we care for. And so additional space is definitely needed. It's something that Department of Health leadership, animal control, and other groups have been working to try to advocate for. It's just a lengthy process, and to find the right building that meets our needs has been a challenge up to this point. But quite simply, the current space is not adequate, and we would be interested in expanding the shelter capacity. As far as impacts from the tornado, activities have definitely become more intense. We've been much more busy, especially the impacted areas, but it's also kind of highlighted the strong network of community partners and the collaboration that's taken place, because folks have been providing pet food, pet supplies. They've been coordinating with animal control. There's been a strong group of community partners that have kind of stood up to help with this response, which is just great to see. On a blue sky day, working together is one thing, but when it's a challenging disaster response and those community partners follow through and show up, that's been greatly appreciated from our community partners that have helped through the responding during the tornado. Allison, as far as capacity, shelter situation, or other impacts during the tornado, is there anything for you to add as well or clarify for my comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo Justin that the current shelter is, limited in the capacity of compared to the amount of animals that we are impounding on a day-to-day basis. With the tornado, we've seen really great responses from our community partners, just as Justin mentioned. We have also seen an increase in families needing to surrender their pets, just because they've been displaced or they're dealing with, being impacted by the tornado, and it's hard to care for a pet when you're in that position. We have seen an increased need for temporary housing for pets. So we've been able to work with the Humane Society of Missouri for a lot of those, but we have also taken in some ourselves. So we call that protective custody when we take in an animal and hold it at the shelter for a family that just needs temporary placement for their animal. So we have some of those cases going on right now. And then with the weather, the extreme temperature going on, we're very busy. We have a lot of animals at the shelter. So it's hard to say whether or not that is increased this year due to the tornado impacts, or if it's just another busy year of dogs being out in extreme temperatures. But we're really grateful to all of our community partners that have been able to help us with the tornado impacts.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Alderwoman Sonia. I have a question. First, let me make a comment because me as Alderwoman Sonia in my community, it's dogs. It's dogs everywhere. They're running. But I think what helps me is I have a lot of people in my community that are dog lovers. And so they're caring, and you all helped us with a situation with a dog, was German Shepherd. And thank you so much because you were really involved and you kept communication open with me so we could make sure that the dog was taken care of. So I appreciate that because you even went so far as to try to locate the owner, which they mysteriously abandoned the property and you couldn't get in touch with the owner. And so you were trying to get the dog homed. And so his brother took the dog. So I thank you for doing that because that made my mind at ease. But I was calling because it's two things. I know Care St. Louis Animal Shelter, it was in their contract. Was there something in there about funding for them receiving $1 million or for the help from the health department within from your budget for animals, for the animal piece in their budget? Were they supposed to get some funding, or are they getting funding or something with the partnership you all have?
Not additional funding outside of the annual contract, Alderwoman Boyd. I feel like there was some ARPA funds identified for animal care and control. Some of those funds were provided for the contract with CARE, but as far as
Okay.
an additional $1 million for the shelter vendor, that is not funding that I'm aware of.
Okay, and then the other thing, because I know that CARE partners with you guys, does any other organization CARE partner like CARE does with you?
Not for direct funding. CARE STL is the only vendor that receives direct funding from the Department of Health. There are
Okay.
other agencies, Feral Cat Outreach, for example. I can have Allison provide the specific agencies, but there are other community partners that we work with, and they do provide services for city residents. But the only directly funded agency from the Department of Health is CARE STL.
Okay. And so I guess I'm leading to, because I keep hearing you all say, and I see CARE St. Louis Help, CARE Animal Shelter, and you continuously say you're running out of space. And I know you're trying to find a larger place so you can house your animals and stuff. But are you all working together to try to find something, or are you all looking to build something, or how is that going to look?
So I've been made aware of efforts by CARE STL to identify a building for their operations that could
Mhm.
also have space identified for city shelter operations.
Okay,
And the way that would be structured is right now, the city leases a separate building for the city shelter. Instead of leasing that building, there's the potential for CARE's new building that they're working on to have space for the city to lease there. And so it would just be a different leased space that what had a higher capacity and offered better services.
okay. And so, and then the other thing, I'm just trying to figure out because we have a groomer that was willing to open up. He has a space that he would willing to open up, and we were trying to collaborate or partner with, I guess, you and CARE, but it just didn't go further. And I was trying to figure out what did he need to do to try to help you all with the overflow, because that's what he wanted to do.
Okay, we're definitely open to any support from other community partners or agencies. And so this might be just the need to connect the groomer and
Okay.
us so that we can identify the space or resources or capacity they have to offer and try to determine the best way to access those resources in that space.
Okay, because I think anything will help you all because the way we're going and with the tornado, it didn't help. And so it added. So I know over in the Penrose area by the park, they had a lot of damage. And so it's now they're starting to see an increase of stray dogs in the park. And so people are walking their dogs, but now they have packs of dogs walking. Or I don't know if somebody's reported that to you yet or notified you all what's going on.
We have seen an
So
increased number of groups of dogs roaming recently near the impacted areas, and we've been doing our best to address that. That is a priority for our team to respond to. So we typically send out a few animal control officers, and we typically set traps as well, along with our efforts to catch the dogs.
And so, and I don't think people realize the how large O'Fallon Park is because years ago I used to live over there and I used to visit that park. So it's places in that park I don't even think people are aware of. And so now you have a lot of wild animals that are congregating over there, and coyotes are one of them that they see. So has anybody reported them to you yet?
I'm not aware of any recent reports of coyotes in O'Fallon Park, but we do occasionally get reports of coyotes in various areas of the city.
Okay, so I was just because a resident had sent me a text and said that they have spotted coyotes, and I know how they are with dogs and animals, especially small dogs. And so I just want to bring that to you. So I guess my one complaint I get continuously is, and especially it's in the fall when school starts and kids are standing at the bus stop catching bus. And I don't think if you're a dog lover, you understand it, but a lot of people don't. A lot of times dogs are in packs because during the fall, that's the mating time. And so they're running together because that's what they do. But kids are scared and families are scared. And so it used to be years ago, because I'm looking at your hours and you're saying 8 to 5. It used to be we would have animal control patrolling around those school sites and those bus stops to make sure that those kids are safe. So do you all still do that? Or because I see you said 8 to 5, and so a lot of those kids are catching the buses earlier. So are you all accommodating in the fall for those kids that are catching the buses?
we don't currently shift our schedule based on kind of annual or seasonal changes like the school start times, Alderwoman. It could be something that we could consider splitting the shifts a little bit so that there's a little bit stronger coverage earlier in the morning to allow for those increased patrols. It's not something we do currently, but it is
Okay.
something that we would be willing to evaluate and determine how we can best provide animal control services during those times.
Okay. And so I know we've been running into a lot of maulings with people in our community, and it's from north, south, it's all over. And so what I'm looking at is, and I know I've been told it's through the state that it has to be pushed, more enforcement on the owners as to on the animals, because the animals only act as the way you treat them. And so that's what, have you all heard anything about that or looked into that?
We have been working to strengthen our relationship with law enforcement because, as you mentioned, animal control's teeth, I guess, for lack of a bad pun, when animal control is involved, our ability to conduct enforcement and hold people accountable is limited. And the
Right.
assistance of law enforcement and that actual peace officer and their documentation and their process does assist us greatly. And we have collaborated with law enforcement for some warrants and seizures and other things. So we're working to enhance our relationship with law enforcement to provide us that better enforcement capability, but we're still kind of early on in expanding that collaboration with law enforcement.
Okay, if you all could get with me, I would like to work with you on that because like I said, when dogs or animals are born, they're innocent and they don't plan to hurt anybody. But if you're mistreating them or abusing them, they're going to retaliate at whoever they see. And so I'm just really concerned because when we have people that are mauled to death or bitten and they're in bad condition, and it just seems like it's no accountability to that owner. And I hear people, oh, they were a good guy or they were a good person. They couldn't have been, because we're at the point where we have lost a life and or somebody's in really bad medical shape, because and they have medical bills forever to try to recoup from that. And now that's a fear and a stigma on that person, because when they see a dog, they're panicking. So I would really like to work with you all to be more involved to make sure that, you know, people are safe as to our animals also. Okay. So on that, does anyone else have anything, Madam Clerk, did anybody have any questions or anything from sent in to us?
We have one person who wants to ask a question
Okay,
from the public.
okay,
I'm go ahead and move them over.
thank you. Are they there?
I'm trying to move them over. Okay, they're over.
Okay. Hello.
Hey, Rachel, if you can please turn your camera on. Okay, it says they've declined. Let me try it again.
They declined to turn it on or to move over.
They declined to move over. Let me, because their hand is up, so.
I saw
Okay,
that.
well,
Her name was Rachel.
yes.
Yeah. Did she-
Okay, Rachel, if you could unmute your camera and turn on your mic.
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah,
Definitely technical issues.
Okay, thank you,
Um,
Rachel, for coming.
Thank you so much.
We'd have to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Okay, you're on, Miss Rachel.
Thank you. I am a volunteer at CARE STL. So was just joined today because very invested in this topic, have volunteered there since 2019. And just had a couple of questions that I was hoping could get some clarity. One being, I know there was an earlier conversation about their contract and there was mention of it being extended. Is there clarity on whether that extension was for 12 months or for 6 months? Because I've heard different things.
Sure. Rachel, first, thank you for volunteering at the shelter. We greatly appreciate your contributions with helping out with the animals there. As far as the current contract goes with CARE, it's a 6-month contract extension for CARE STL to provide the shelter operation services.
Okay. And is there a reason why it was only 6 months? I guess I'll preface this by saying I did, hear the mayor's announcement a few months back about the intention of the city taking over CARE STL operations. And it seems like there was an extension. Just wondering if that is still, if we know if that's still the mayor's intention and if there's a timeline related to that.
Sure. So I definitely won't speak to the mayor's intentions. I'll just provide information on the CARE STL contract extension. The two variables that impact that extension are time and available funding. We wanted to maintain level funding for the shelter. We did not want to reduce their funding with this contract extension. And so based on the funding that was available in the budget, there was only 6 months worth of funding at that time. So instead of doing a 12-month contract, more months but less money, we chose to do the same amount of money. It's just less months based on the approved budget.
So when do those conversations happen? And I don't know if this is Justin in your wheelhouse or, on the alderman side, when do those conversations happen in terms of extensions, or if there's, again, plans to take over by the city? And I don't know, this might not be, again, you to answer. Whoever needs to answer, that would be appreciated.
I know that from the Department of Health perspective, the conversations are continuous. We're continually discussing the animal shelter situation as far as building size and capacity and funding, as well as the shelter providers. So those conversations are continuous from the Department of Health perspective.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is there's not clarity on if obviously you can't speak for the mayor, but if anybody on this committee has heard that their plans to continue, or for the city to take over operations, since I know this is kind of in this committee's wheelhouse.
And so I can have a conversation in regards to that, because I did hear a little bit about that some months back, like in February or so. It was conversation, but I didn't get any solidarity on the information. So I just waited like you to see, which way was it going to turn. And so that's why I was asking earlier about the partnership with them, because I was just trying to see how are we looking at that, because it's apparent with the health department's budget, they can't do it by themselves. They can't handle the animal control by themselves. That's too large of a project. So they would need an organization as CARE St. Louis to do this, to work in conjunction with them. And that's why I offered the service of someone else that could house some of the animals. So I think that's a conversation we need to have to start looking more into it, to get some clarity, because it's not good for CARE St. Louis either to be on the edge and not knowing what's going to happen from day to day. So I can do that and follow up for you. And tell Wayne I'll look into it.
Thank you. And I'm not speaking on behalf of CARE or anything like that. I'm just speaking on behalf of a concerned citizen, honestly, that is passionate about this subject and passionate about, what happens with these animals.
I'm with you. I'm on the same page you are, Rachel. So
Thank you.
Follow up. Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate that. How will I be able to get that updated information, whatever you find out?
So did you have your email? You can send us your email, send it to the clerk. and then I can start corresponding with you.
I
Okay,
have it, Pam. I have, this is Alderman Oldenburg. Rachel, I'll loop you in with the chairwoman and then we'll make some inquiries to the mayor's office and the Department of Health, and we'll just stay in the loop with you for sure.
I
Yeah,
really appreciate it. Thank you.
no problem.
Thanks
we'll
for the
be-
opportunity
You're welcome.
to speak. Appreciate it.
Did we have anybody else, Ms. Roslyn?
That was the only speaker.
Okay, any written comments or concerns?
We have none.
Okay. All right. Well, Justin and Allison, thank you all. It was very informative. I don't think we beat up on you guys too bad today. I think you all was pretty good. We appreciate you bringing your presentation to us and kind of answering questions that you could answer. And I thank my great committee member for willing to work with me in regards to working with the partnership. And so I think Alderwoman Sonye has said a while last year with the health department budget that your budget is really an embarrassment because you only get 1% of the whole budget. And so part of this is the animal control. And that's why I said I couldn't see, you all not working with them or not being partnership because you need that extra piece there. So we'll be able to have those conversations with the mayor to see how we can work this out to be a win-win for the animals and for the people that's invested in this. So on that note, I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. And we greatly appreciate your budgetary advocacy for the Department of Health. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank
And
you.
Justin, please remember to email that PowerPoint.
We will send it over.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So on that note, we can go back to approval of minutes. So can we get a motion to approve the minutes of Thursday, June the 12th? Tom and Alicia.
Sorry, I'm here. So moved to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Can we get a second? I'll second it.
You can, perfect.
Could you call the roll, clerk, please?
Alderwoman Tyus. Vice Chair Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Sonye. Chair Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus. Vice Chair Sonye. I'm sorry. Alderwoman Sonye. We have 2 aye votes.
I know she there.
Must be
She-
multitasking.
Yeah, she multitasking. Yeah, Alicia's multitasking. Cause we gotta have a,
Third.
yeah.
Let me try texting her real quick. Hang tight. Hold it up.
Yeah, she doing something.
Yeah, it's coming. I just shot her a text. Let's hope she's in a place to do this. Gotta get these minutes approved.
Right, to move on. There she
There
is.
we go.
We're taking a motion on the minutes.
Aye.
We have 3 aye votes.
Thank you so much, Alderwoman Sonye. We have any announcements this morning? Besides
Evans.
everybody's multitasking.
No.
And excuse members, we excuse Alderwoman Tyus. And so I ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.